Good morning, everyone. In this video, we are going to address community ecology. Now, in community ecology, we're going to take a look at community. And what is a community? A community is basically several species uh, living in a specific geographical area and interacting together, not just between themselves, but also with their environment. Now, that interspecific relationship brings the concept of biodiversity in that community. Now, why does biodiversity matter? One of the aspects I want to underline it's the explosion of the human population. Now, the explosion of the human population that we have seen in the past century, it's basically affecting biodiversity in several ways. For instance, we have loss of natural ecosystems with using a lot of land for agriculture, using a lot of land for housing. Different anthropic activities are impacting biodiversity. Now, when you consider, for instance, with the development of housing, well, when tearing down forest for housing, you understand that we are going to destroy the ecosystem, so disturb communities, and basically two options possible. Either the organisms that were living in that area are going to find new places to live, or they're going to basically be brought to extinction. So both things are being seen. And also, if we think of diseases like Ebola, now Ebola it's a new emerging infectious disease. Now that disease actually came because human beings basically took over the forest per se, and basically by going in the forest interacting with wildlife there, well, they were in that situation, for instance, able to come in contact with a virus that they never came in contact with with previously, so that there is no adaptation of that virus in our body and our body with that virus. So we see some new diseases that we are experiencing that we don't know how to deal with. Anyway, there are several aspects in there. So I defined what a community is and what community ecology is. So if we focus particularly in interspecific relationships, we are going to also take a look at how those relationships help the two organisms or harm the two organisms, or basically are um, either a win or a loss situation. So what I want to address it's competition. Actually, competition in between species is going to be because organisms or two species are using either the same food or the same space. Basically, what we are going to call at some point an ecological niche. Now, what is an ecological niche? An ecological niche is basically how a species fits in its environment. What type of food does that species eating? What type of space? Where is that organism living? What are the requirements? Now, sometimes you have competition because the two organisms are using the same resources. Now, when two different species are using the same resources, basically when their ecological niche is similar, well, there are two options possible. Either one of the species is going to be driven away, or basically one species is going to be extinct. Okay, well, when I say driven away, it's basically to go at a different place. Basically, we see what we call competitive exclusion principle. A competitive exclusion principle says that basically two species that share the same ecological niche cannot live together. Okay, same two species which ecological niche are too similar cannot live together. So, um, so this is an aspect that we are going to see in community ecology. Another aspect, it's mutualism. So mutualism is going to occur when two species actually are benefiting each other. Now, if you think, for instance, of plants, several plants actually are not able to obtain nitrogen directly from the atmosphere where nitrogen is stored. Actually, all the plants are not able to obtain nitrogen from uh, from the atmosphere, nitrogen gas. That nitrogen has to be converted into a form that plants can use. Now, plants do not know how to do this. However, microorganisms such as bacteria are able, at least some, are able to convert nitrogen gas into a form of nitrogen that plant can use, such as ammonium nitrate. Okay, so this form of nitrogen can be used by the plant, but the plant does not know how to do this. So what happens is that the interaction between the plant and the bacterium is going to benefit each other. So the bacterium is going to help the plant obtain the form of nitrogen that allows the plant to synthesize proteins and nucleic acids, while the plant is providing shelter, protecting the microorganism. Okay, we have several other examples of mutualism. Now, another aspect of community ecology is predation. Well, predation is typically when one organism is feeding on another organism. Okay, so predation is going to be negative for one species, positive for another species. That said, this is a relationship that is relatively complex, because in spite of the fact that predation is negative for one organism, however, even the organism that is benefiting does not have any interest in seeing all the individuals that they use as food to be driven to extinction. So it's not their benefit, to their benefit. So basically, there is going to be some management. Willingly or unwillingly, there is going to be some management at some point. Okay, another relationship that we are going to take a look among species, it's parasitism and pathogens. Parasitism, it's basically when one species is going to be harmed while the other one is going to benefit, and typically we are going to have a large organism that is going to be the host, while a small organism, it's going to be the parasite. Okay, for instance, some flatworms, some roundworms can be parasitic organism of larger organism. For instance, mammals can be host of roundworms, for such as ascaris. Okay. Now, among the organisms that are going to benefit from their host and their host suffering, well, you have some that are microscopic, and those ones that are microscopic, we tend to call them pathogens. Okay, so we're going to call them pathogens like bacteria, fungi. Okay, some fungi are pathogenic, some bacteria are pathogenic. Okay, those ones are organisms that cause diseases actively or passively, but in any case, they cause diseases. So these are the group that we are going to call pathogens. Now, the next aspect of community ecology that we're going to take a look at is the trophic structure. In the trophic structure, so here we are going to basically take a look at the feeding relationship among species. So basically, what is feeding on what? That takes me to the next aspect, which is the food chain. The food chain is basically going to be the sequence in a community, the sequence of food transfer between trophic level. Now, when we address trophic levels, there are going to be we are going to see a certain number of trophic levels. The very basic trophic level, it's the producers. The producers is that trophic level is made up of organisms that are able to produce organic compounds from inorganic compounds such as carbon dioxide and water. So organisms are going to be able to bring together carbon dioxide and water using light energy to produce organic molecules such as sugars, lipids, etc. So those producers are going to be the base or the basis of all trophic levels, both on the land and in aquatic environment. Now, those producers are going to be eaten by another trophic level that is above. That trophic level is called the consumer. Okay? Now, in the consumers, you have different levels of consumers. You have the primary consumers. The primary consumers are going to be the herbivores. The herbivores on a terrestrial ecosystem, and the plankton, okay, the zooplankton that are going to feed on phytoplankton in aquatic environment. Okay, so the zooplankton are going to feed on aquatic plankton. Zooplankton are going to feed on aquatic phytoplankton. There we go. And then the next trophic level is going to be made up of secondary consumers. The secondary consumers are those consumers that are going to feed on herbivores, okay, on a terrestrial ecosystem. And then you have a tertiary consumer level. So the tertiary consumer level are carnivores, okay? Now, I did not say that the secondary consumers are also carnivores. Now, the tertiary consumers are the one that are going to consume secondary consumers that are themselves going to consume primary consumers. So most trophic levels are going to stop at the tertiary consumer level. However, some communities can have up to 4 trophic levels. So basically we're going to have a quaternary consumer. For instance,